and test. As COVID cases rise, that's the message being sent to many, but kids are running low. Not backing down, anti-mandate protests enter their third week in Canada. An innocent app or a means to snoop? Why some are sounding the alarm over Beijing's compulsory Olympics app. Plus,
a shower of pink. I'm Sandy Chi at Le Ho Park. The cherry blossoms are out, signaling the end of winter this year. But it's not a particularly good sign.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. On Wednesday, Taiwan's Central Epidemic Command Center reported 10 new domestic cases of COVID-19 and 44 new imported ones. Companies are increasingly asking employees to get tested for COVID-19, and teachers who aren't fully vaccinated must get tested as schools reopen this week. But as Louise Watt reports, there's a shortage of test kits in some areas.
Rapid COVID test kits are getting harder to find, with some pharmacies running out, as many companies have asked their staff to get tested before returning to work after the Lunar New Year holiday.
好几家，所以他就说都缺货，所以我没有去啦。他说暂时不会有了。
One pharmacist explains the problem.
没有的原因是因为那个所有他们工厂做出来的部分全部给政府征收了，或是医院征收掉了，所以我们现在看不到。
Office workers are not the only ones getting tested. Junior high and elementary schools reopen on Friday after a 3-week break. Teachers and other staff who aren't double vaccinated have to get tested, according to guidelines from Taiwan's Central Epidemic Command Center.
如果说没有注射完第2剂的这个，比如说校内的工作同仁或者是校外进来的，我们都会提供1次的一个快筛。
Schools are also preparing in other ways.
在为孩子准备了每一个人有20个的口罩，然后要一并的发放给孩子。那另外学校也利用这段开学前的这几天，也请我们的安心人力的伙伴们，然后来进到各教室去做环境的一个清洁消毒。
Schools hope this careful cleaning will keep students safe and their education free from the pandemic. Klein Wang and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Hong Kong has introduced new COVID-19 prevention measures as the city faces its largest number of cases since the pandemic began. Shelves were empty of fresh produce at many supermarkets as the border with mainland China was tightened, putting pressure on supplies. And on Wednesday, the Hong Kong government announced new rules limiting public gatherings to 2 people, down from 4, and only allowing a maximum of 2 households to meet indoors. The city's leader says more locations will now require proof of vaccination for entry.
加入嘅有4項嘅處所，佢唔需要關閉，但係去到2月24日咧，佢都要係使用安心出行，例如係商場啊、百貨公司啊、超級市場、街市同埋市集。
Demonstrators in New Zealand have taken to the streets of the capital Wellington to protest vaccine mandates in the country. It follows similar protests across Canada that are entering their 3rd week, with protesters now causing disruption at several land crossings with the United States. James Chater reports.
Heavy traffic continues at the busiest land crossing in North America. It comes as truckers protesting vaccine mandates in Canada blocked traffic between the Canadian province of Ontario and the US state of Michigan. Earlier this week, the bridge that handles around 8,000 trucks a day was brought to a standstill. In the country's capital, Ottawa, demonstrators and their trucks are still clogging the city streets after over 2 weeks of protests. And inside Canada's parliament, the dividing lines are clear.
Everyone is sick and tired of lockdowns, of the measures we have to do, of the sacrifices we've had to make. But Canadians have continued to step up over the past 2 years, been there for each other, been there to get vaccinated.
But from the leader of Canada's opposition Conservative Party, accusations that Trudeau is blurring the lines between politics and public health.
Countries like Ireland, Sweden, Norway, Israel, Czech Republic, the UK, Spain, Denmark, they're all removing restrictions and mandates, and they're all countries that have a lower vaccine rate than Canada.
The protests in Canada are inspiring similar demonstrations overseas. In New Zealand's capital, Wellington, on Tuesday, truckers also protesting vaccine mandates attach Canadian flags to their vehicles. It's a reference to their source of inspiration across the Pacific.
I am here today to protest against the mandates, as I lost my job due to the mandates and I absolutely love that job.
I think it would be wrong to...
Despite the unrest, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has said she won't negotiate with the demonstrators. Vaccine mandates across the world are increasingly seen as either a route to freedom or an assault on it. And if these competing claims continue to cause instability, leaders may be forced to the negotiating table. James Rayner and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
The European Union has announced a new plan that will see $48 billion invested in semiconductor or chip manufacturing through 2030. The bloc currently produces only 10% of the world's semiconductors, and few of these are made using the most advanced processes needed for high-end chips. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said chips are key to modern life.
Chips are at the center of the global technological race. They are, of course, also the bedrock of our modern economies. And they are essential for the goods we use on an everyday basis. We have them in our smartphones, we have them in our washing machines. During the pandemic, for example, we needed them crucially in the life-saving ventilators. Or now, for example, with the energy topics, they are in the electricity grids. So the chips are crucial in almost every device.
A delegation from Somaliland, led by the de facto state foreign minister, Essa Khalid Mohammed, met with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen on Wednesday. The delegation arrived in Taiwan late Tuesday and will stay until Saturday. Meetings are also scheduled with Taiwan's foreign minister and state-owned petroleum company, CPC Corp, to seek closer bilateral cooperation. Somaliland declared independence from Somalia in 1991, but is not officially recognized by any country. Taiwan and Somaliland agreed to exchange representative offices in 2020. Taiwan donated 150,000 doses of its domestically developed Medigen COVID-19 vaccine to Somaliland last month. CPC Corp purchased a 49% share in a Somaliland oil field last year. As the Beijing Winter Olympics get underway, cybersecurity experts have raised concerns about how an app required by all participants could be used to snoop on users and leave long-lasting loopholes. Reinhold Kilpatrick has this report.
Without the roar of spectators or the ability for visitors to freely roam the host city, the Beijing Winter Games are an Olympics like no other. The thousands of athletes and members of the media converging on the Chinese capital are locked inside a closed-loop bubble, cut off from the rest of the country due to coronavirus fears. They are also required to use an app called Beijing 2022, but cybersecurity experts have warned that the app can be used to spy on or monitor users.
Audio and text can be collected and transmitted for analysis that I found is actually censors the user from either sending a message within the app or searching for things within the app. You use a voice-to-text dictation and you speak one of these words that's on this illegal keyword list that has come to light. You'll actually see that there's data transmission happening. And we can see in the code that if you attempt to send this illegal word, text, or phrase, you'll actually see this in the background in the code that this is an illegal search word.
Dutch Olympians have been banned from bringing personal phones and laptops due to surveillance concerns. Other countries, like the US, Canada, Germany, and Australia, have urged delegates to do the same. But this may not be enough, since even after the app is removed from a device, the threat remains.
The issue is you're never really certain about what vulnerabilities
could be lurking in the background, both, with this app, which is easy enough to delete after the games are over, but also can be embedded in the phone's software after that. These can provide invaluable backdoors through things called zero-day exploits, which are just, bugs that are not widely known about. And that could last potentially for how long you have the phone, for years. And if you upload, for example, back up a copy of your phone's data in, iCloud, that could last for many generations of your personal devices.
As the first city ever to host both the Summer and Winter Olympics, Beijing aims to leave a positive and lasting impression, fulfilling its slogan, "Together for a shared future." But when it comes to the online behavior of those present, that lasting bond may be a little too close for comfort. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
Colombia's Navy has seized 4 tons of cocaine on board a semi-submersible vessel in the Pacific Ocean. Colombian authorities said the boat was operated by a branch of the guerrilla group, Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, which finances its operations through the trafficking and sale of illegal substances. The Navy intercepted the vessel heading toward the coast of Central America. The seized cocaine has a street value of $150 million. Thailand has dropped cannabis from its list of controlled substances, moving one step closer to becoming the first Asian nation to decriminalize the drug. All parts of the cannabis plant will be allowed to be used in the country when the measure comes into effect later this year, though production, sale, and possession will be partially regulated. Extracted content with more than 0.2% THC, the psychoactive ingredient that produces a high, remains illegal. The country's health minister says he hopes to promote the medicinal cannabis industry. Coming up after the break.
I'm James Chater for TaiwanPlus, and coming up on today's show, I show you how puppetry and Beijing opera are coming together in a Greek tragedy. Isn't that right?
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus. For more great stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the Taiwan Plus app.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. Let's now get a roundup of some of the other stories making the headlines around the world. The French President Emmanuel Macron has met with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky one day after holding talks with Russia's president. The meeting comes as Moscow denied Macron's claim that Russia's Vladimir Putin had agreed not to escalate the crisis on Ukraine's border. At a joint press briefing with Macron on Tuesday, Zelensky called on Putin to take concrete steps towards de-escalation. He also expressed optimism for an upcoming meeting between officials from France, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia.
Перші кроки – це те, що сказав Еммануель. У нас є майданчик, є нормандський формат. Ми дуже позитивно реагуємо на зустріч радників, яка відбудеться найближчі дні. Я вважаю, що після цієї зустрічі є можливість, якщо є відкритість, є можливість, що буде зустріч лідерів. І там можна продемонструвати і свою суб'єктність, і свою відкритість.
The former Pope Benedict has apologized to survivors of sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, but he denied personal wrongdoing in the handling of sex abuse cases when he was Archbishop of Munich from 1977 to 1982. A report last month by the German Catholic Church found that Benedict, then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, was told of 4 child sex abuse cases in his diocese but failed to take action. The report also said the former pontiff had been at a meeting in 1980 concerning a priest accused of repeated abuses, a meeting Benedict had denied attending. The former pope acknowledged being at a meeting and said there was an unintentional error in his previous statement. He also said the offenses of the priest in question had not been brought up at the time. Election season is officially underway in the Philippines. On Tuesday, the country's presidential hopefuls launched their campaigns. Leading the polls is Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., son of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos, who was ousted in a people's revolt in 1986. Despite allegations of tax fraud and falsifying credentials, Marcos Jr. is ahead of 4 other candidates vying for president in May elections. Polling in second place is the Philippines' current Vice President, Leni Robredo, a former human rights lawyer. Due to COVID-19, in-person campaigning has been scaled back, making social media a more important battleground than ever before. Joss paper is a traditional incense paper made for burnt offerings, commonly used in ancestor worship. Nowadays, joss paper is often mass-produced, but one family in Taiwan is trying to preserve the craft. Ken Ning has their story.
Keeping an ancient tradition alive, these women are preparing joss paper for Lunar New Year. The Taiwanese people use the traditional incense paper to honor deities as well as deceased family members on holidays and special occasions. They are burned in offering at temples or outside homes.
一天做几张哦，这很难算张啦。这比如说这样一个就100多张了。
This factory is owned by the Chen family, who have been making joss paper for over 100 years. Chen Miaofen is the 4th generation to craft the sheets in the traditional way.
因为毕竟现在这个是手工贴的，不像说外面机器量产，可以说我要多少量，你要多少，我就都可以给你的。所以就是这个就是算慢慢黄昏产业慢慢会没落了，对，以后可能都会被机器取代掉。
Also known as spirit money in English, joss paper is also buried with the dead at funerals to ensure that the spirit's needs are taken care of. As for the living, it serves as an important symbol while praying for offspring, prosperity, and longevity. Chen's 82-year-old father, Chen Gonghui, is adamant that he's not going to give up the tradition despite any difficulties.
是啊，我坚持一直做下去啊，做到不能动为止啊。没赚钱也有了哈，没有工人也有了哈，当时那时候工人是有，那时候一间在工，就像这样差不多10个人在这里工作。
As the Lunar New Year draws near, peak season for joss paper, Chen and his family are determined to keep alive this ancient tradition. Kama Xu and Ken Ning for TaiwanPlus.
Beijing opera, Greek mythology, and electronic music aren't usually found in the same sentence. But in a new production of Phaedra, Taiwan's Guoguang Opera Company fused them seamlessly. James Chater has this report.
我觉得在某种意义上，对我来讲是一个往前走的一条方向跟一条路。我觉得对我来讲是，我不想墨守成规，而是想在继传统之后呢，开创一个新的艺术形式。
梦中有泪，他的泪不是为我。
Phaedra's ornate headpiece and makeup are straight out of traditional Beijing opera, but the Queen's actions, wiping tears from the stepson she illicitly desires and biting the fabric of her sleeves, are from another artistic world. This is Guoguang Opera Company's new production of Phaedra, a story from ancient Greek mythology about a queen and her forbidden desire for her stepson prince. Guoguang Opera Company is one of Taiwan's most celebrated opera troupes. They're known for their innovative performances, and Phaedra is no exception. They're using traditional Beijing opera to tell a tragic ancient Greek tale, but the production incorporates elements that are alien to both art forms, like electronic music.
我们就希望透过以京剧为本体，然后呢，跟很多的当代艺术进行很多不同的对话。那透过这些异质元素的加入，相互撞击，其实我们最终的目的是要壮大这个京剧的表演能量，或者是帮这个京剧的表演语汇再扩增。
That expanded vocabulary includes examining Phaedra's internal world and the psychology of dreams, sexual desire, and betrayal.
我们传统戏不太会讲情欲的部分，我们是比较保守、比较内敛的。那但是这个呢是要展现出来、要外放出来的，所以我们要先把这个心房先打开，然后怎么样去展现这个部分？这个就是。西方的一种就是的故事，带给我们的一个是想法上的一个刺激，然后看做法上要如何的去突破我们保守的一些观念。
But the director's challenge didn't stop at combining Chinese aesthetics with Greek mythology.
在这个作品当中，有点像一栋建筑物。那我这个建筑物里面要融合很多来自不同的艺术元素，我觉得我好像是一个建筑师，就是要把每个空间隔好，把每个结构分类好，然后让每一个艺术可以在它最舒服的空间去发挥它的语汇，这样。
The music of Phaedra is one of its most experimental parts. While most opera composers spend years mastering the techniques of the genre in traditional schools, the composer of this production was off in Europe studying electronic music. She says she knew very little about Beijing opera before starting the project.
因为京剧的角色他有很强烈的性格，然后加上费特他对于王子的那个爱跟恨是这么强烈，然后每个人在京剧里面他们有不一样的服装的代号啊，然后那个脸谱啊等等的，所以在音乐上面也是，他们每个角色都有自己的主题曲。
And if it sounds like Beijing opera, Greek mythology, and electronic music were a lot to put together, the producers also decided to soften the tragedy with puppetry and a bit of humor brought by the little prince in puppet form.
怎么看待京剧跟偶戏的结合？他考我们两个。这些的动作上面跟所要表达出来，他在这个整个戏里面所传递出来的讯息，刚刚好是我觉得 OK， 可以跟京剧可以结合在一起，而且算是偶戏里面它本来就有所谓的写意跟一个诗意化的部分，那这个部分跟京剧原本的这个所谓的写意的这个部分是完全的密合在一起，对吧？
Guo Guang hopes to take Phaedra overseas, but the production already has an international identity, with assistance provided by Mexican and Dutch artists. But at heart, this is a Taiwanese production, and more than that, a production by Taiwanese women who steered every part of its creation.
我想，不管从这个题材的本身，从女性本身的这样的一个对于这样的一个情欲的思考，还有舞台上各种各样的跨界的形式的呈现，我都希望这出戏能够带给西方观众一种全新的感受。也就是说，我希望他们能够看到一个跟他们过去印象里面截然不同的 Phaedra， 而那个是来自台湾的创作者。
A kaleidoscope of artistic elements coming together in this unique production, and it's their smooth synthesis by these Taiwanese women that makes this piece truly more than the sum of its parts. Chris Marr and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
In many places around the world, cherry blossoms are blooming. For many in Taiwan, it's part of the Lunar New Year celebrations. But this time, the floral paradise has arrived earlier, raising concerns about the impact of climate change. Our reporter Sunny Chi has the story.
It's cherry blossom season and the sightseers are out.
Every year I will carry my dog here to take some photos of the blossom.
Every year the delicate blooms are a sign of spring.
From January to March, cherry blossoms in forests, recreational areas, and parks in Taiwan turn pink.
This natural wonder attracts about 500,000 tourists each year. But now they are blooming much earlier than expected.
At Lehuo Park in Taipei, the government has been cultivating a variety of cherry trees for years. They grow along Nego River and are a favorite among locals. But the early floral explosion is a symptom of climate change.
Say that the dominant factor really is temperature, because we have a higher and higher temperature. So that makes the accumulated sun is even larger than usual. So that's why I think that is why the blooming date is earlier than past years.
It's not only in Taiwan that cherry trees are blooming early. Last year, Japan's famed cherry blossoms in Kyoto were in full bloom 10 days sooner than usual. It was the earliest they'd bloom in 1,200 years. The tree's visitors in Taipei are noticing the shift in schedule.
Last year, I remember it was like February, and this year is pretty early.
This promise of an early spring brings with it a warning. If people do nothing to stop the buildup of stress on the environment, scientists say it won't just be the cherry blossoms affected by global warming. Alex Chen, Aznaya Zhou, and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus News. I'm Betty Chen. Finally today, we'll leave you with pictures of 2 newborn Royal Bengal tiger cubs in a zoo in the northeast India. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the Taiwan Plus app. Stay safe and see you next time.